And welcome back. This is your man Warrior, and we have done peanut butter and almond butter, and we have done some jellies and jams, and it wouldn't be complete if we didn't do bread. So a couple of things. First, I'm not trying to sell a specific brand or push you into a specific brand. What I'm trying to teach you is ingredients, because ingredients is king. This isn't about a specific, this isn't vegan, this isn't keto or anything like that. This is just eat healthy, eat right. And so the things that I'm going to talk about are going to be just overarching things. There's going to be more than one way to skin a cat. And what that means is if you find a brand that matches the criteria that I'm suggesting, then that brand is fine. But what you need to have is an eye for what to look for. And so that's what these video series are for, is to help you have an eye to look for it. Now, when you go to the bread aisle, you probably look around. There's literally a 24-foot section at Walmart of bread. And you're probably wondering, oh my gosh, how do I do this? You've probably eaten things like the Wonder Bread, which we grew up on back in the 60s, 70s, 80s. It's still to this day a very popular brand, or a brand like Sara Lee, Sarah doesn't, Sara Lee doesn't. Don't even know what that means, but that's their slogan. I know their slogan. So Sara Lee's a really popular brand. And then you might even be like, I'm going to do something healthier for myself. And so you go into like the Oro wheat, which is going to be something that's, has the wheat and things like that, and like grains. And you're like, oh man, yeah, it's grainy. That's really great. But what I want to do is give you the eyes for this. Now, this is going to be talking about some breads that may contain wheat. And so if you have, a wheat allergy or whatever, I would probably have to go and do a separate video on that. No one in my family that I'm aware of has a wheat allergy. So that's not something that I'm going to specifically address in this video. With that said, as I started to look through the breads, both the ones I own, like I said, this is a journey for me as I'm going through my pantry, slowly replacing one item at a time. I'm finding that I have things that are significantly inferior to what I should have. Now, the first one I'm going to show you for the sake of time, because we don't want to do too many, because there's literally hundreds of types of breads, but we're just going to do 3 today. The first one I'm going to show you is a common white bread. Now, the reason why this white bread is brand new and here in my house is because I literally just bought this a few weeks ago. I don't want to rob my family of the things they love, and I'll be honest, this is, in my opinion, the absolute best bread for toast. I've never had a bread better for toast, but I started to look at the ingredients, because here I am, looking at ingredients and whatnot. And I started feeling bad buying this for my family, because I know they like it, but this isn't a good bread for them. And so I bought it again so they can have their toast bread, but I've really warned them on the consumption of this specific bread. Now, with breads, really quick, there's kind of 3 levels. There's the no-no bad breads, which are going to be made out of flours. Now, if you pause this video and go run to your pantry, probably all of your breads are going to be made of flour, and you're going to be like, what do I do? Well, there are a number of brands not made with flour. Flour's bad, and there's a bunch of reasons why flour is bad. Let's just talk about that for a second. The first is flour is a process in which they basically break the grain down. Most of the time, there's a bleaching process. They also add chemicals. What this does is it removes the value of the grain to begin with, and you're left with a chemicalized product that's left over that really has little to no nutritional value, and it's not ideal for you because of that. So flour means that basically there's been a chemical process and it has very little nutritional value, and you can start to see that in these breads. So for example, this bread, most like good breads will have nuts in them. That's what they're made of. That's what they're making the flour out of. And so if you take the nut, pretty much all nuts have protein. So your breads should be high in protein. They should also have some fats, but that's healthy fats. Fats such as polyunsaturated fat or monounsaturated fat. There should be a little bit of fats from the nuts. This particular bread has absolutely no fat whatsoever. And that is a red flag indicator that all of the value of those basically grains have been lost in the processing of the bread. So let's just go through this white bread ingredients. So the first ingredient, and by the way, ingredients, the first ingredient is the one that has the highest percentage. And as it goes down the ingredient line, they list them from the most to the least. So it's important to know where the item, what the ingredient, where it's located in your ingredients section. So the very first thing is enriched wheat flour. Now, what's funny about that is this is a white bread, but it has wheat as its first ingredient. And then what they're saying is flour, malted barley flour, reduced iron, niacin, thiamine, mononitrate, which is vitamin D, riboflavin, which is vitamin B2, folic acid. Then they add some water. That's fine. Then they add sugar. This is the refined chemicalized sugar. So this is not good sugar at all. Now, ideally, you would want bread that has no sugar at all. It doesn't really need it. However, they do add sugar, but if they're going to add sugar, it needs to be very minimal and it needs to be organic, like organic cane sugar. They also add salt. This is the bad salt, not a good salt. Good salt would be like Himalayan pink salt or sea salt. And then they add some potato flakes, some yeast. We don't know what kind of yeast this is, so that could be bad. And then cultured wheat flour. So they're adding a second wheat flour. They did the enriched and now they're doing cultured. And then some grain vinegar. This is not necessarily good vinegar for you. Citric acid and then soy lectin. So it has wheat and soy in it, which is funny because it's a white bread. So this one right here, the reason why I would say, that this particular bread is a no-go, which is going to be like 90% of the breads that you see on the bread aisle, is it's a bunch of flours that make up the bread, and then they're going to add some other stuff inside of there. Things like the when it just says salt or just says sugar, those are both never good. It should be sea salt or Himalayan pink salt, and if it's sugar, if it's even in there, which it shouldn't be, but if it's in there, it should be something organic, like organic cane sugar. So we know what not to do with breads. Now we're going to go into a couple of choices that when you go to the store, what can you find? The first one I'm going to suggest is actually really easy to find at Sam's Club and Costco's and Walmart's, Safeways and Kroger's. So this is the like a kind of a realistic brand for you. It is going to have a little bit of sugar, but it's a healthy sugar, so it's something you don't have to worry as much about. Ideally, I'll do a third one, and that third one's not going to have any sugars at all, so you can kind of see the differences. Now, the second one that I'm going to recommend, this is actually one I am going to recommend, I don't recommend that white bread, is going to be this guy, and it's Dave's Bread. It's Dave's Killer Bread, and he has a bunch of different types. Now, not all of his breads are created equal. Some have more sugar and some have less sugar. This one has the least amount of sugar that I could find, and like I said, sugar's not bad for you, especially organic cane sugar, but it's ideal not to have any, and if you have some, you want it to be minimal. Now, when I look at the nutrition facts right off the gate, I notice it has some polyunsaturated fats and monounsaturated fats, which are the healthy fats, and I'm like, oh, so this must have some genuine, real, like nuts, that you're looking for, oats and nuts and stuff. So this is really, really going to be good. And then there's very little sugar. There's 3 grams of sugar, per serving. So first ingredient, let's go ahead and go into the ingredients. Organic whole wheat, which organic whole wheat is great. And that's organic whole wheat flour plus the organic cracked whole wheat. So it's actually the wheat itself plus some of the wheat flour, but both are organic. What that means is they're not treated with Roundup, so you're not eating that chemical. Water, which of course they always use as the second ingredient most of the time. Then they have organic good seed grain and seed mix, which consists of organic whole flax seed, organic sunflower seeds, that's the whole sunflower seed, organic brown sesame seeds, the whole seed, organic black sesame seeds, the whole seed, ground whole flax seeds, organic steel cut oats, which is the good kind of oats, the really good kind of oats. And then near the bottom, you'll notice it has some organic cane sugar. Now, ideally no sugar, but this has a very healthy kind of sugar, which actually has a ton of nutritional value. And then organic wheat gluten, organic oat fiber, and then less than 2%. And that less than 2%, which is what you kind of want to pay attention to, because this is the like preservatives or things like that potential, is organic molasses molasses, which is not bad at all, sea salt, which is the good kind of salt, yeast, organic vinegar, so we know what kind of vinegar it is. It's not a vinegar that's treated, and organic cultured wheat flour, plus some enzymes. And then for coloring, they actually use a cherry powder, which is really, really smart on them. So this bread you can find pretty much anywhere, and it's basically 100% amazing. It's got your actual whole grain. It's not ground up into those powders, which are then chemicalized, and you lose all the value. You're going to get the entire seed's value. The seed is supposed to be in there for a reason, because it gives you nutrition, and this is going to give you the entire nutrition panel for those seeds. So this is a really, really healthy option. This is option number one, in my opinion. Now, if we're going to go best case scenario, you're going to have to go to probably a refrigerated. So we call something like this shelf stable. And what that means is shelf stable means is that it can literally be on the shelf and it's stable. It's not going to go bad. There are brands of things that can be shelf stable, but if you want to get really healthy with breads that are not shelf stable, i.e. they need to be refrigerated. And so this one is, let me turn it up right for you, is Ezekiel Bread. That's the name of the brand, Ezekiel Bread. And we're going to go through why it needs refrigerated and why it's so good. Now, this bread, again, we look and immediately I see that it has the healthy fats inside. And so healthy fats are good for you. You want that. And that means it has actual, oats and nuts and things that you're supposed to have. Now, it doesn't have any of the preservatives that other breads might have. There are healthy preservatives in this other bread, but there are just no preservatives in this bread, which means that it has to be refrigerated or it will go bad. That's a good thing. You actually want a product. If you bake a bread at home, it only lasts for a couple of days. There is a reason for that, because it's healthy, fresh, and made, and it's going to go bad. You'll have to throw it away in a few days. If you can buy bread that's been on, manufactured 4 months ago and been on the shelf for 2 or 3 months, that is a really bad type of bread. So shelf stability for bread is not something you necessarily want. This guy goes through his bread really fast, and so it's really, really clean. Now, if we want to take it to kind of the ultimate on bread, and I will say, by the way, this is more affordable, and this is also going to probably taste a whole heck of a lot better for a lot of those people out there. This Ezekiel bread is a phenomenal bread, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion. It is not as flavorful. It's a little drier. So when you're eating it, it's almost like you're just flat eating grains, but it's way healthier for you. So it's kind of a trade-off. You have to decide, how healthy do you want to go? This is a great option for those people that are like, I still want to really enjoy my bread. Ezekiel bread, you could definitely get used to, but this bread has those grains. This one has sprouted grains. So what is a sprouted grain, and why is it better than the other grain? Well, when you have grains and they get watered, what happens is they sprout so they can regrow, right? A sprouted grain has even more nutrients. It's got the best nutrient balance of any grain out there. And so this is the absolute best kind of grain that you could get, because it's sprouted grains. So those are going to be the most nutritious, and it's in the refrigerated aisle. So it means there's no preservatives. Now, when we look into the ingredients, it's organic sprouted wheat. So that's just, it's a wheat bread. So it has wheat, and then it has filtered water. So it's not just water, but they're doing a filtration process, which means they care about even the water. Organic barley, which is a malted barley, organic sprouted rye, organic sprouted barley, organic sprouted oats, organic sprouted millet, organic sprouted corn, organic sprouted brown rice, some fresh yeast. So they're actually defining the type of yeast, because it can be yeast that's not so fresh, organic wheat gluten, and then they do add some salt, but it's sea salt. These are very simple ingredients. Basically, it's oats and nuts and some sea salt. And that's basically it. It's a little bit of yeast for rising. It's healthy. It's filtered water. Really, you can't get any better for this. Now, I know there's a million ones out there. The idea for this is just to give you the eyes to see. So when you're shopping, you can make one better decision at a time. So when you're going through and you're deciding which one, remember, you have to go to the refrigerated section to get something like the Ezekiel bread. Look at the ingredients. Sprouted is the best for grains, but if you don't get sprouted grains, you still still want whole grains. Now, one last thing on the whole grains versus sprouted grains versus the flours. Flours, once they're broken down, you know they're broken down, they're chemicalized. Something that happens is they lose their nutrition, but also they become a simple carbohydrate. And the problem with a simple carbohydrate is when you eat it, you are hungry like an hour later. It actually does not satiate or, fulfill the need of feeling hungry. So satiation is something that's very important when you eat, so you do not overeat. This is very important. And so these other breads with flours, you can eat them, and then an hour later you're hungry again, and you're like, why is that? With the whole grains and whole nuts, which you get out of this, or which you get out of the sprouted, is there are complex carbohydrates. What that means is the body has to do the breakdown process instead of the company doing it. So the company breaks it down into flour. Your body, getting those grains, have to process that and break it down. A complex carb is the only kind of carb you really want to consume, because what happens is it forces your body to break it down. It takes way longer, which makes you feel fuller longer, and you get all the nutrition through your body breaking it down that you extract through the body's breakdown. So simple carbohydrates are going to not satiate. Complex carbohydrates are going to satiate. So you don't want flours when possible. What you want are these whole grains. And if you can ideally get sprouted grains, then all the better. I hope this helps you with being able to read ingredients and know what breads are right or what breads might not be the best for you. Personally, of my favorite, I really love this one. It tastes the best in my opinion. I eat it every day in my sandwiches, and it's really, really phenomenal. As always, thanks for watching.